I love sweatpants, but I need to dress up. I mean,
Yeah.
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 hi guys, I'm Alex Badia, the style director of Women's Way Daily, and I'm here with my team.
Hi, I'm Emily Mercer. I'm one of the market editors.
I'm Andrew Shang, the other market editor.
And together today we're going to be talking about New York Fashion Week. It ended yesterday. We'll be talking about highlights and trends. This has been a very different fashion week for all of us. Mostly digital with very few physical shows. First of all, I could see shows on my pajamas. That is always a good thing. And second of all, I also like seeing all the different videos that designers have put out there. I had more time to think about it as an overall. What do you guys think about the experience?
Obviously one of a kind, very different than we've ever experienced. We're here, we're not moving around the city, and it's a different energy, but it is still so inspiring to see these designers, churning out new collections amidst everything that's happened and coming out with innovative digital and a couple in person, social distance ways to present spring.
There were still a handful of videos, like you guys said, that had a lot of emotion and a lot of soul put into them.
The Kate video for me was excellent. I felt that the videography, the music, the mood, it really translated something else that I have not seen from Kate before.
I love how Kate went into that, darkness and brought forth power that way. Where on the opposite spectrum, Ula Johnson and Cynthia Rowley really wanted to celebrate New York, and they used it as their backdrop in a very optimistic lens. And I thought that was a cool contrast to other collections.
Along those lines, Alice and Olivia also having that dance celebration and a pop-up performance in New York City as one of the few live events to really celebrate New York, its creative energy, its resilience, which I think is something that we really need right now.
One of the main messages of the season that was basically fun and escapism, and I think we saw that everywhere. I want to read a quote from Tom Ford. The global zeitgeist always affects fashion, and for me, this longing for a hopeful spring translates into somewhat classic, relaxed clothes, but clothes that make me smile. Clothes to have a little bit of fun in. So I do think that really summarizes a lot of people's vision. What do you guys feel about that?
I agree with that. I know that while a lot of people went for very wearable clothes that, we're going to be living in 6 months from now because we don't know where the world is going to be, there still is that optimistic feel, whether it's through, vibrant, playful candy colors or some happy floral prints or, some flounced designs.
Yeah, and I think it was also a look towards the future, right? Our current reality calls for this idea of comfort, which we all saw, but I appreciated a lot of these kind of hopeful outlooks from designers with the fantasy.
Do you guys want to mention other similar lively or fun trends that you saw in terms of prints, for example?
Yeah, so like you were saying, in Lafayette 148, they have those candy colored hues, and I thought that was a really fun way injected into soft tailored suiting, where Zimmerman did these super stunning out of this world gowns that were elaborate and exaggerated in these very vibrant colors, and it totally went towards that escapist feeling.
You also saw color at Jason Wu. You saw it at Syncocept with these bright neons, and you saw these really kind of trippy, fun prints at Maisie Weiland and C Plus series.
Also speaking to color in a more pragmatic dressing kind of way, Marina Moscone's collection, which was stunning this season yet again, really brought forth more colors than we've ever seen in one of her selections.
Let's talk a little bit about the sense of discovery, because one thing that New York Fashion Week, obviously things that we need to note is the big names were missing. No Michael Kors, no Marc Jacobs, no Ralph Lauren, no Tommy Hilfiger. The big sort of pillars of the week were missing, but this allowed to other names to come up as being basically the discovery of New York Fashion Week.
C Plus series, Andrew.
We love it.
Got to have a Zoom call with the designer and also, following up, looking at the visuals in a collection that was a very cool interpretation of the Natalie Portman film Annihilation. And that's not a brand that, would have gotten as much of a spotlight if all of these big designers were there, and there's some beauty to that. is so nice to discover new talents, from Duncan, who does like corporate goth girl, to some of the more tailored people like Graham Tyler.
But I think, Alex, you also were really feeling Theophilio this week, right?
Yeah, Theophilio, Jamaican-born, Brooklyn-based designer, that he is really using these as a platform to sort of enhance the voices of Black immigrants in America, the use of color, the use of the Jamaican flag motifs as references, and the way he's constructing garments. It was really feminine and really fun. There's so much energy happening. I mean, there was this other designer. His name is Neil, and I'm gonna destroy the last name. Is Grodzinger. He's a designer of Neil. He continued his exploration of queer sensuality through subversive couture-like constructions. He was upcycling existing clothing. He went to a 99-cent store and bought women's lingerie and she took like a woman's bra, deconstructed it and embellished it with some couture-like beading, and the whole piece became like a barely there sort of glam top. I felt so energized by that creativity and that hunger of New York. And I think that New York really, yes, discovery, but people really want to make a change. And I think that the only thing you need is an idea, basically, and everything will follow.
I think that is such an important thing, you know, the messaging for the season and this empowerment and, you know, everything that comes along with it. For instance, Christian Cowan, he had a cast of 28 amazing artists, activists, like models, all LGBTQ promoters and activists, and he did a collaboration with Lil Nas X, and all of the proceeds are being donated to the Loveline Foundation in Atlanta, which is where Lil Nas is from. And everything about his collection, you know, approaching it from the design to finishing was about, you know, celebrating individuality, celebrating queerness, and that's such an important thing in this world right now.
I do think the social conscience of Fashion Week in New York is something that we would all love to be here again more and more for the next seasons. And I do think that this is only the beginning, that I feel that fashion designers will use Fashion Week as a social and political platform for sure.
I think the benefit of the CFDA's new Runway 360 platform was being able to give designers the flexibility and the freedom to provide this brand messaging and say what they want in a different way. For me, Kim Shui had a very personal video it was a documentary style video spotlighting the different quarantine experiences of friends and family, which I thought was really relatable.
Also, I really love this video from this designer, Bihu Mohapatra. He used Ariana DeBose. She was a breakthrough star from Hamilton. It gives you such an idea of how fashion, it is connected to culture.
I also liked about the videos too, not having to focus just on casting models. You could really cast anyone that kind of aligns with your brand. Just the way in the world has been moving these past few months, you realize how important it is for brands to have a voice.
This season, obviously, we're approaching an election. Voting, hot topic as well for a couple. You know, Tanya Taylor didn't show a collection, but that was her message. And then also you have Christian Siriano, who had a amazing show, socially distant. He gave vote masks out to everybody, and I think that's an amazing way. You know, you can have the fashion, you can have this, but it's deeper, you know.
Christian Siriano, I went to the preview, we shot it. Obviously, we saw all the dresses with votes. It was great. I really felt that we really had a special treat this season to really have Zoom calls with designers.
You just have typically these like 5-minute quick sound bites before or after a show. We really got to go in depth about more than the clothes, talk about the role of the designer, the future of the industry, and gauge their thoughts while we try to move forward.
Obviously, we all want to have physical shows, but what do you think, what would you like to stay from this season moving forward?
Ooh.
I think a balance of the Runway 360 app with some type of live event would be perfect, because I don't know if you know, but the Runway 360 app is such a good resource for emerging brands.
Just keeping that openness with their customer and engaging a larger audience has been a huge part of this digital experience. It's not just X number of people from the industry and VIP are invited to a show. You know, everybody can experience it at the same time, and I think there's some beauty to that.
There is something in there to rebuild Fashion Week and the fashion in America.
That's all from us from New York Fashion Week.
And hopefully we get to see you guys really soon.
And for the latest news and reviews, don't forget, go to WWD.com. Bye-bye.